Good morning and welcome to this press briefing on the third day of the LWF Assembly. Today we have the chairperson of the Finance Committee, Ms. Christina Jackson-Skelton, with us, and she gave her report to the Assembly yesterday, and now we have a chance to discuss it a bit further. Maybe to open up, one of the things you mentioned is that there has been an increased growth in financial resources in the last 7 years. To what do we attribute that?
Yes, I think, first of all, just to start out, to say that over the 7-year period we had total income of 779 million euro, which is an incredible generosity, really, of our member churches and agencies. And then within that, we saw almost a doubling of income, 89% growth from where we started in 2010 to the end of the period. I think a lot of that was driven by the humanitarian crises in the world, yes. So that the needs were greater. But then that's coupled really with the growing expertise and confidence and experience that the Lutheran World Federation has, so that there are government agencies, there are church-related agencies that have the confidence to continue to give an increasing amount of support to the Lutheran World Federation. So that we went really from $76 million a year to $150, I'm from the United States, 76 million euro a year to 151 million euro, and most of that really was in the area of the work that's done by World Service.
Thank you. I want to open up for questions. Please state your name and the media you represent. Benjamin.
Benjamin, a freelance journalist from Germany. I followed your report yesterday and I saw the number of membership fees coming into the Lutheran World Federation. And it was mentioned that not all churches are in fact paying membership fees. Are those churches which are not paying only churches of the Third World, or are there as well churches from, for example, Europe, the Nordic regions, Eastern Europe, Americas, which are not paying, and if yes, which churches are it?
I think there are churches from Europe, there are churches from Asia, there are churches from Africa and Latin America, various churches. It couldn't be identified with simply one region that are not able to pay for various reasons. We feel that the fair membership formula that we have that looks at the particular wealth of a country and also looks at the number of members is a good first step to come up with a fair membership fee, but I think we also have to say that we also have to look at the context and the situation of the churches, their availability to fund membership fees, and so what's important is that we start a conversation and then we continue to address the particular issues that they may have around their capacity. So we've seen growth. We're in conversation with churches that have not been able to do that yet, particularly through the communion office. But at this point, I think will be a continuing conversation and relationship to address that.
Thank you. Yes.
Joy Bostock on the German Press Agency. For 2 questions. Initially, I'd like to ask, in the press release was mentioned that some traditional donors, that the income from traditional donors has declined over the last years. I was wondering which traditional donors are those. I'm sorry if you've already mentioned that before. And the other question, you said the rise in income over the last 7 years is partly due to the humanitarian crisis in the world. Can you elaborate a bit more on that, please, on any particular crises and where does the money specifically come from related to these crises? Thank you.
Yes, in terms of decrease in traditional donors, the world has shifted in many ways. There have been some changes, for example, in the availability of government funding to some of our member churches, and that has certainly impacted the purpose for which the funds can be gathered and used. So that's placed new restrictions, I would say, on how we're able to fund particular parts of the work, such as our holistic work that's done through the Department for Mission and Development. It's also the case that we are looking to see, I think over time, probably some shifts even in membership fees. Some of what have been largely contributing churches are seeing decline in the number of their members. That long term could have an impact. And And I think finally also, as we have this communion of churches, they have developed very strong bilateral relationships. And in some cases, it's not necessarily a decrease in funding for mission, but some of that money is going directly to, from one church to another instead of through the Lutheran World Federation, which results in a decline. In terms of the humanitarian response, I think a lot of that is really through areas of migration and refugee assistance, for which World Service has just such a strong reputation going back to the very start of our history as the Lutheran World Federation.
I'm going to speak again from Ecumenical News. I was just wondering, you've had quite a good track record for the last 7 years. How's it going to be looking forward? Do you think you can sustain this?
Yes, thank you. That's a good question. I think, sustainability for every nonprofit organization is something that will be a continuing process and that we have to address. The council over the last couple years, particularly once we were faced with a sudden situation of the appreciation of the Swiss franc against the euro, has put in place some measures to really look at our sustainability and to address it. That will be the work of the upcoming council, but I feel like it has been framed up. There are steps that have been taken, such as the sustainability process, but also looking pretty squarely at the issue of unrestricted funding, which can be very, very challenging. The growth in the endowment fund, taking a look at our reserve policy, putting in place a resource mobilization office, all of those things move toward sustainability, but I would never be one to say that, yes, that's not an issue. It will be an issue, and very important, I think, to address in a forthright way.
Thank you. Benjamin?
The communion of the world Reformed churches moved because of the Swiss franc from Geneva to Hanover. Is there anything comparable planned in the Lutheran World Federation? Are you thinking about relocating because of the Swiss franc?
Yes, thank you. Well, I mean, there are obviously benefits to being in a location like Geneva, and there are also high costs. So in terms of what I had mentioned previously, a plan to address sustainability, that will include the location of services. So will they continue to be in Geneva? Should they be somewhere else? Will we look at, there are certain things that don't need to be centralized and may be located. So I think all of those options are on the table, but at this point, no decisions have been made.
Yes, Peter?
Your costs for this assembly are a little bit higher than they were for the last assembly. What do you attribute this in the increase in costs of having the assembly in Namibia?
I think, there are all kinds of variances in the costs. We certainly have, a lot of delegates that maybe were closer when we were in Stuttgart than Namibia, so the travel costs are significant, but obviously that's a commitment for us as a communion to move about the location of the assembly. So I think travel costs would be the largest component. We also, have had very generous contributions in the past from member churches, and so it is a number of factors, but the largest would be the cost of travel. Yeah.
Good. We have time for two more questions. If not, then I think we wrap this up. Thank you so much, Christina. We will be back tomorrow afternoon or close to tomorrow evening when we have the president-elect of the LWF with us. So you're welcome to attend at that time.
Thank you.
Thank you.